Hello, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of Career Bootcamp 2024, where you will learn how to elevate your career to new heights. Today's session is Social Media Mastery, Land Your Dream Job with Online Etiquette and Ethics. Please note that today's session will be offered in English and French simultaneously. To view the French session, please return to the Zoom lobby where you'll be able to join the French session. My name is Sequoia Richards. For accessibility purposes, I am wearing a blue shirt and glasses. I work as a learning advisor at Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada, also known as IRCC, and I will be your moderator for this session. Before we begin, I would like to recognize the land on which I am working is a traditional unceded territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Career Bootcamp is the largest conference in the Government of Canada, and the goal is to support you in your career journey. As we move through today's session, please share your questions by using the Q&A button in the language of your choice. You can vote for the questions you like by clicking on the thumbs up button. As with all Fin sessions, this session will be recorded so you can watch the recording at a later date. In addition to the recordings on our YouTube channel, we are also offering another way to learn this year, a podcast series of the Career Bootcamp sessions. After Career Bootcamp, the podcast will be made available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Please note that the PowerPoint presentations for each session is included on our wiki page. All the resources shared during this session will be added to our wiki page under resources. Now, moving on to our learning objectives for today. After today's session, you'll be able to explore the principles of social media etiquette and how to apply them professionally while job hunting. You will learn strategies to optimize your online profiles and showcase your skills and experience effectively to attract potential employers. As well, you will gain a comprehensive understanding of the Code of Public Service Values and Ethics and learn how to align your online behavior with these principles when using social media for job searching. I would now like to introduce our amazing panelists who are joining us today. Sierra Purjalali is a dedicated, thoughtful, patient, and committed public servant. Sierra is a young woman who has brown hair and wears glasses. For more than a year, she has been working as a communications officer at the Communications Security Establishment, CSE. Her daily work includes writing bilingual cybersecurity advice and guidance that is easy for all Canadians to understand. Sierra holds an honors Bachelor of Arts in Communication from the University of Ottawa. She is the lead of the Young Professionals Network at CSE. Daniel Cox is a proud federal public servant with nearly a decade of service. As one of Canada's free agents, Dan's work influences leadership's decision-making where communication is key. Having previously worked in various roles in engagement and program management, he served as PSPC's Young Professional Network's departmental chair. As leader of the network, he led the design, planning, and delivery of the network's program of work, which was heavily based around internal and external communication, including social media. Philippe Blanchette has been working with the Federal Public Service for the past 17 years. He has had a progressive journey through a variety of roles, mostly in human resources, including labor relations, compensation, reporting, and strategic planning. Philippe currently holds the position of Assistant Director and Chief Human Resource Officer for the People, Culture, and Workplace sector at the Financial Transactions and Reports Analysis Center of Canada. He has made a career of prioritizing employee well-being, diversity and inclusion, as well as promoting and supporting a strong appreciation for work-life balance, further enhancing the overall work environment. In addition to his professional achievements, Philippe holds a bachelor's degree of arts and social sciences and a certificate in personnel administration from the University of Moncton. Before we get started, we have 2 quick polling questions to see what you know about social media. The first question, do you use social media to network with colleagues for job hunting or career development? Your options are yes, regularly, yes, occasionally, no, I don't use social media for this purpose. The second question, how confident are you that your social media post, if not anonymous, would positively reflect on your personal or professional reputation? Your options are very confident, somewhat confident, not very confident, not confident at all. So I'll give everyone a few moments to answer the poll. Okay, so I see we have no, a lot of no, I don't use social media for this purpose. And a lot of people are somewhat confident that it would positively reflect on their personal or professional reputation. That is very good to know. I will now pass it over to you, Philippe.
Perfect. Thank you very much. First of all, thank you for having me. And one of the aspects or the learning objective today is values and ethics within the public service, because it is closely linked on the social media presence. As you're becoming a public servant, values and ethics are applied or linked to whatever you do at work, but also outside of work. And it's sort of important to understand what is the values and ethics within the public service, what's expected of you as a public servant, because some of that could guide the way you will deal with social media or the way you will portray yourself on social media. So today I'll just give you a run through of, first of all, the values that we've given ourselves within the public service. And so those values really are there to guide your behavior as a public servant and also your ethical duty. So as ethics, what's guiding our moral principles as public servant as well. And as I said, when you decide to become a public servant, really it's almost like a 24/7 responsibility, because you are representing the public service and it's the use of public funds. You are sort of expected to represent your employer or to behave in such a fashion that will be in line with the values of your employer at all times. So the way you use social media may have an impact on that. So a little bit of on the values and ethics code within the public service. It's been there for a long time. It hasn't been reviewed for a long time. So the use of social media have taken such a strong place in terms of what we do and how we communicate with people that some of those values, when they were put in place, social media didn't even exist. Which is interesting because if you follow a little bit of the priorities that are being asked by the clerk, for example, from departments, the clerk has ordered sort of a dialogue and a review of our values and ethics today within the public service to make sure that it still reflects the environment and the society in which we live today. So to me, that's interesting that times are changing, but we can it's also interesting to see that some of those values are still existing, but the way we apply them may have changed, or where we need to respect those values may have evolved as well. So one of the values we have very quickly is respect for democracy. So basically, it's the importance of democratic principles and follow the rule of law as public servant. So you're expected to uphold and support the democratic process, which is constitutional for us in Canada. The second one is respect for people. So always have a public servant, you have to make sure that you're always fair and equitable in the way you treat individuals, but also that you serve the public. Whatever you do within as a public servant, that you treat public or employee, colleagues, stakeholders always with integrity and respect. The third one is integrity. So always deal with honesty, transparency, and making sure that you have the courage to uphold ethical principles as a public servant. The fourth one is stewardship. So we're managing public resources. So everything we do is related to that, and making sure that we're always making decisions as public service that are best interest for the public. And the last one is excellence. So always strive for excellence, high quality service in the service that we provide to Canadian citizens and the clients that we serve as public servant, regardless if it's internal or external. We have a duty of excellence. So the way we use social media could really influence or really can draw a perception on if you're meeting those values. And it could be how you use social media in the aspect of your work, regardless if it's internal social media to government like GC Connects or and so forth, or external social media like X, like Facebook, like LinkedIn, for example. So the way you portray yourself may have an influence on how you portray those values in your personal and professional life. So for example, when you're using social media, when you're looking at the values of respect for democracy, for example, as a public servant, you have to make sure that you refrain from spreading misinformation and always ensure that you foster constructive dialogue. If you're looking at respect for people, when you're using social media or communicating through social media, you have to make sure you're always doing it in a respectful and inclusive way, and also avoid any form of discrimination or harassment. As it could be perceived as you as a public servant, regardless if you do it in your professional or personal life, if you engage in some of those behavior, it could be perceived that you're not respecting those values as a public servant. For integrity, as you're using social media, making sure that you always have the highest standard of honesty and transparency in online communication, and that you don't take into any behavior that could erode public trust towards you as a public servant and the image that you portray on your employer, which is Government of Canada. Stewardship, it's always protecting sensitive information. So as you're using social media, you have to make sure that the information that you provide on your social media is of public interest and it's not information that is protected. And excellence is making sure that you always promote accurate information, you engage professionally and contribute positively to public discourse. So these type of behavior, when you link them to our values and ethics, are extremely important and almost the foundation of the rest of the rest of this presentation on the do's and don'ts. For example, it's going to be linked to those values on how you should behave and how you should use social media, which brings me to our next presenter. So Sequoia, I think my part is done, but I'll be here to answer any questions at the end. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Philippe. So some great points there on values and ethics. So I'm here to speak today for online behaviors to avoid. So there's a number of things to avoid on social media. again, like Philippe said, social media is one of those things that's a lot newer than the rules around it as far as values and ethics. And there are a number of overarching things, even if you go and talk to corporate communications, that will come up, and its main themes that you should follow as far as what you put online. There are some instances where, people use the term common sense, but it's not always common. As far as what you can post, what you're allowed to post, what you're able to post, either personally or even, myself as having run a young professionals network, there was still a lot of gray area because we weren't an official communications office for the department that we were in. So there was still a number of gray areas for posting on social media. So we're going to dig into a couple really important ones so that you guys can stay safe and kind of protect your peace and your career as you kind of branch out. As we saw in the poll, a lot of people aren't using social media for career purposes or job hunting, and that's okay. However, if you want to get into it, it can be very daunting, and it can be a little bit overwhelming as you start. I think with different generations, there's different affinities to using social media for job posting or for job hunting and professional networking, and it's not necessarily the same as doing it in a personal sense. So number one is don't share private information. This goes without saying as far as there's a term called doxing, giving out private information that will lead to, same as we use different security levels at work for different parts of information. There's certain combinations of private information that if they get onto the internet, that they can cause injury either to yourself financially, career-wise. There's certain identifying factors that can really hinder either your career or even your professional life in general. So sharing private information is a big one. Don't ghost others. Ghosting is basically when you communicate with somebody and then you just cease all communication. That can be not a super courteous thing to be doing online in social media. Don't hijack another post by making it about you. This is a really a concept of, it's an idea of conscientiousness. And basically the idea is that the best thing to do is kind of use somebody's post in order to learn more about them and their perspective. Making the post about you kind of, it takes away from what the person is trying to do, which is broaden their reach. So cheerleading for people and boosting them and saying, yeah, that's such an interesting an interesting perspective. Maybe we'll want to talk offline about that. It's a really good opportunity to build other people up, which is just happens to be a super thing to do for your own brand. So don't over tag or overuse hashtags. This is something, it's like seasoning and cooking. It should be used sparingly. Don't be too heavy handed with it. Don't take credit for others' work. That's a large thing that is just really great to keep in mind as you go along in using social media. Don't overshare. So oversharing might include, again, sharing too much private information, being too specific with certain episodes that might happen at work. And then the last one is super important, which is don't take on the trolls yourself, which is, it goes without saying that it's important to not try to take on people's conflicting perspectives about a post that you do or a post that somebody else posts. It can be a really sticky situation and go south very quickly to try and change somebody's mind in about something in the comments section. So two strategies that are really helpful are one, that's an interesting and challenging perspective. Thank you so much for sharing. We can definitely speak more about this offline to kind of pivot it away from that forum. And then another one is to just not answer that type of stuff at all. So finally, one thing that Philly mentioned about values and ethics is to treat people with respect. I think it's really important that you treat yourself with the same respect that you would treat others with. So the last point is reporting any misconduct. There's always feedback in social media posts or in social media platforms to report harassing, injurious behavior. And so it's really important to report any misconduct that might go on in any part, direct messages, posts, anything. And the reason being is to take these places, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, is to try and keep them as peaceful as possible and productive as possible. And that's not just your own platform, your own profile, but others as well. So if we could go to the next slide. So here's a more fun one. Online behaviors to consider, sharing valuable content. So this is a really great opportunity for people to be strategic in the way that they use social media. So if you don't use social media for career development, for networking, and you want to start, being strategic about it is an excellent way to make sure that you cover off this first point. Share valuable content, be intentional, consider implications. So part of great communication is knowing your audience, it's knowing your target demographic, and that's just a part of business communication in general. And Sierra, who's going to come up after me, that's her 9 to 5 communication. And I'm sure she would agree that being intentional and thinking about the types of things that you want to post about, the types of people that you want to reach, the types of people that you want to reach out to when you share social media posts, when you reshare other people's content, when you boost other people in the comments section, when you cheerlead for people. I think it's important to have a direction, to have a strategy. And if you're not sure about that, doing a little bit of homework about the types of things that you want to accomplish. Friedrich Nietzsche said, the how is basically governed by the why. And if you figure out why you want to do something, your end goal, then the in-between becomes a little bit more clear when it comes to communication. Crafting a compelling and professional social media profile. This goes with the same sort of thing. Some people already said in the questions about, should I put my picture on my resume? Should I put, what should I wear in a picture on my resume? Should I include that? What are the types of things that you wear to a Zoom meeting for a panel? Just literally anything. And it's, I used to think that this stuff shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter really what you wear to work, as long as you wear something clean, who cares? But the type of goal that you want to accomplish goes hand in hand with crafting a compelling and professional social media profile. It does matter. Ensuring it is complete and up to date, that's showing people your eye for detail, showcasing your skills, experience, and achievements effectively. That's another part of being strategic about it, being purposeful and being conscientious of yourself and respecting yourself about what it is that you want to accomplish with your social media profile or posts. And it does take a little bit of extra energy, but any sort of communication takes energy. So when you're putting yourself out there, why not put the best version of yourself out there, the most effective version of yourself out there? There's a lot of different facets to you as a person, inside work, outside work. What is I use the word vibe a lot. That's basically it. It's those intangible things where you're putting yourself all together, all different pieces, and then you're presenting it to the public. Enhancing visibility and attracting potential employers, using professional language with proper spelling and grammar and posts. There's so many plugins for, different web browsers or applications that just help you in perfecting your spelling or grammar and posts. I'm a big fan of keeping things pretty short and simple. And really, again, if you want to be seen as somebody with an eye for detail, make sure you double check things before you hit save. Make sure you double check things, even after you post them, just have a little look. It's those little tips and tricks that will help it just look a little bit more polished. And lastly, this again goes back to respecting yourself and being your most authentic self on social media, is setting boundaries, your intent of what it is that you want to accomplish, who it is you want to reach, how you want to reach them, how you want to portray yourself. Boundaries are a very important part of that, excuse me. And and really it's huge, the amount of information that's online now, the amount of different perspectives, the amount of challenging debate that's available out there. It's a very large gray area. So if you know yourself, what you're comfortable with, what you're not comfortable with, when you go and you start to use these tools and you start to use these tools for job hunting and networking and other things, setting boundaries that are non-negotiable, that are little maybe rules for yourself. Again, feel it alluded to the fact that it's very gray out there. You're a public servant. You have values and ethics that you have to abide by. Respect others. Respect yourself. Conduct yourself with integrity out there, and that's basically it. It's super helpful to have those ground rules for yourself. And again, think before you post. Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? And is it kind? I think that those are great rules. So we'll pass it off to Sierra.
Thank you so much, Dan and Philippe. Hi, everyone. So here we have an overview of all the social media platforms we can leverage as public servants. And even if you're not actively looking for a new role, by virtue of listing your name, your title, your resume, or even your email, you're representing the crown when you use social media. So I like to focus on the term reputation management here. It's key. Your social profile is a great way to show your individuality. So outside of work, think about what else you can show to make yourself more relatable. And in return, it'll make you more approachable as well. Most of the time when we use social media, we will be accessing these platforms from our personal devices and not those of the GC network. So we'll start with Instagram. Number one, Instagram is a popular photo sharing platform that really gets an inside look into someone's interests or even a government department's initiatives. Here at CSC, we use it as the insider, which gives our followers a behind-the-scenes look at what's going on both at CSC and the Cyber Center. So it's very fun and lighthearted. Number two, Twitter, otherwise known as X, is really about building a following and sharing key updates. You could follow GC influencers, departments, and really any other account from across the globe. Now we've seen a downward trend in engagement ever since the takeover. However, Twitter still remains a key player in the social media world for the GC as we wait for further guidelines. So number three, if you aren't already on LinkedIn by now, make it your mission by the end of this week to create a profile. LinkedIn is another platform that helps not only the GC spread its mission, but also helps out job seekers. Treat it as your digital resume and keep your most recent experience up to date. There's even a whole section where you can choose your skills. Just make sure to keep them relevant. You can get creative here and link to personal passion projects. For example, if you run a business, volunteer, or even have a YouTube channel, People want you to showcase who you are, and they will literally connect with you and perhaps start a conversation. This is really key for my fellow introverts here because, for example, if you come across a person and you're curious to know more, you can connect with them, and the chances of them saying no when you ask them for a virtual coffee is highly unlikely. So it's another great tool to leverage. LinkedIn is popular for a good reason, and the engagement is on the rise and is likely here to stay. If you don't believe me, just over the past year, our CSE LinkedIn has grown by 100%. We were at about 13,000 this time last year, and just yesterday we hit 23,000 followers. Next, number 4, let's talk about Facebook, and it's no longer for just connecting with friends and family. There are so many pages and groups you can join that are catered to students, term employees, and indeterminate GC employees. Whether you're trying to make a lateral move or a vertical move. Last year, I created a bank that serves as a one-stop shop for Facebook pages relevant to the GC. These are unofficial, so keep in mind the tips my colleagues have shared thus far before posting and connecting with others. The benefit here is that on Facebook, you can post or receive feedback anonymously, and we will have the link available for you here as well as in the resource section. Finally, number 5, TikTok. Similar to Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, this platform gives you the power to connect with others effortlessly and share information instantly. Even though we don't use it in the government anymore, you might want to try it on your own personal network. So for this, we have guidance from the Cyber Center that can help you conduct your research before using any social media app or platform, and the link will be provided below. And as with any internet website, keep in mind it's not mandatory to give all your personal information. Like my colleague said, if you don't feel comfortable sharing your profile picture, simply don't. And if you don't want your last name to show, turn off that function as well. Review your privacy settings regularly to make sure you're the one that's in control. And just as a sidebar, you can use hashtags sparingly in your posts. I usually limit it to about 3. They are most commonly used on Twitter, LinkedIn, and TikTok. Hashtags help group your content with other trending content, so it has a higher visibility of being seen. An example of your post could be, hey, hashtag GC Network, are you ready? Hashtag CBC_CDC starts this week. Register to get access to all hashtag Zoom events and more resources. You can also search for posts using hashtags, which is very useful. Even the hashtag GC Jobs is widely used. And if we go to the next slide, we will show you an example of a post on a GC Facebook group page. It's very simple, straight to the point, and she uses some emojis. You can see she includes her personality or kind of what's trending at the moment in the opening line, which not only makes her more relatable, but also more approachable. And Facebook is just another tool you can use to promote yourself and connect with potential hiring managers. So hopefully by now we've equipped you with the tools you need to start. And with that, I'll pass it back to Sequoia for the Q&A.
Thank you for the knowledge you all shared. We will now move on to questions from the audience. So audience members, please add your questions using the Q&A function. You can vote for the questions you like by using the thumbs up. Panelists, please answer questions as quickly as possible so we can cover more material. I will ask the question and one panelist will answer. The others can add or discuss as long as we keep it moving. So let's get straight into it. The first question is, which platform is most useful for networking and job searching?
I can give my input if it can help, being in HR. I would say that for networking, LinkedIn and probably Twitter for some organization. And I'm saying some organizations because some organizations are using it more than others. So for example, Canada Revenue Agency, which takes a big space within the public service, is using Twitter or X now a lot. So all the management, senior management, they're all using Twitter. It's part of their platform. It's part of their brain. That's how they communicate information. So I would say for some organization, get to know your organization and what they're using and preferably and start there. I would say LinkedIn gives you more of a broader sense of there's a lot of departments that are there. I would say don't be afraid to network. And when I say this is don't be afraid to add management representatives, senior management, follow what they share. That's going to give you an insight about what they like, what they promote as professional, what is important to them. And that might even give you a little bit of a heads up is if you do have an opportunity to meet them in person or through a panel like this today, it gives you an edge on what type of questions to ask or to really pique their curiosity and maybe peek into something that they have an interest on, especially if you've already done that research. But I would say LinkedIn for research, and also if you do follow some HR folks that are in the public service from different departments, oftentimes they will share some job postings that are already on jobs.gc.ca. And really, if you want to look for public service jobs, that would be your go-to place. But sometimes if you see it through LinkedIn and it's through your network, it has the possibility of maybe having more interest into what you're looking for because you're going to tend to network with people that have the same interest as you. So that's what I would say in terms of networking and the job search. I know Facebook is taking a lot, took a lot of informal space, I would say. And I say informal because there's a lot of people can share that they're available, their skills and so forth. And also you see departments sharing like for quick interest. Like if a certain person would have a specific set of skills and they're able to market that on Facebook. So if you are able to reach or find these specific Government of Canada Facebook group, then you have access to sort of that quick potential job offer or job opportunity that could be available in your network. So I'll stop there for me. That's what I've noticed in HR.
Thank you, Philippe, for that answer. Sierra, Dan, would you like to add anything else?
Yeah, I'd like to weigh in on that because I think that Philippe raised an important point where, as like myself, I don't necessarily go on Facebook at all ever, but there are a ton of informal groups on there that are pretty effective for job searching in different groups, like so EC groups or AS groups or what have you, IS groups. But Philippe also mentioned about how certain directors, certain not necessarily ADMs, but certain directors and managers, they'll say, I'm looking for this starting this time. I'm in this area, and they might even post directly to a selection process poster. So things like that I see on LinkedIn all the time. I'll repost them for visibility. Same, the opposite goes as well. If somebody's open to work or their assignment is coming to an end, that's another way that networking really helps people out because it's not like you're applying to a job on indeed.com or something like that. LinkedIn is it's way more targeted, especially for the government of Canada. So it's super, super helpful.
Thank you, Dan. So moving on to the next question, what advice do you have for attendees who may want to establish a professional online presence but are concerned about privacy and data security on social media?
Thanks, Sequoia. I'll jump in on this one. So CSC is the sister organization to CSIS, as some of you may know. And for a long time, since I was a co-op, we were terrified of posting on social media. We were told to tell our colleagues, even our families, that we work under defense and to keep it very discreet. Now, obviously, things have changed. If you take a look at our LinkedIn, we have recruiters that are open and say they work at CSC, they're in HR. Please get in touch with them for any jobs. And I think that's kind of the tidbit I give to you when it comes to do's and don'ts. Like, don't just find me and say, oh, since Sierra works at CSC, she can help me get a job, because it's not necessarily the ladder you need to climb. Rather, you could post a discrete profile with just your first name, last letter, your with the first initial of your last name, and go straight to the source. Go straight to those recruiters that are already public. They're already willing to talk to you, and the door will likely be open. Like I said, there's not really someone who doesn't like to talk about themselves or their organization. So I find that is the safest way you could use it. LinkedIn is pretty secure since it is run by Microsoft. They're not harvesting data in some unknown location. So yeah, it's obviously up to you to do your own privacy research. So that's why I've included the Cyber Center's advice and guidance to protect how you connect.
Thank you, Sierra. So moving along to the next question, myth or fact? You will always be eliminated from consideration by hiring managers if your online profile does not have a professional headshot, even if your experience and skill sets are exactly what they're looking for.
I can I can take this one and saying it's a myth, because you have to think in the public service, those values and ethics principles that I shared just during that presentation also applies to the way we do staffing within the public service. There's a very defined way of selecting someone for the right fit into a job, and the social media profile is not necessarily part of that. It does become a character reference, if I can say it that way, in the sense that no one's not allowed to go look and to check on social media for a potential candidate that they're thinking of hiring. So in my view, I don't think the picture, or if you don't use social media, is not going to be a detriment to you into being successful as being hired or being considered for a certain position. And I would say it also depends on what type of positions or what type of network you're looking to get into within public service, because there's certain networks that are using maybe social media a little bit more. They're going to look into that professionalism. But the fact that you don't have a professional picture shot on your LinkedIn or Facebook should not prevent you of being appointed or nominated to a certain position. There are certain staffing principles that are followed within the public service, and this is what takes precedence. Your social media should not necessarily influence that.
Thank you. Can you share an example of a specific social media etiquette challenge?
So maybe I can speak from personal experience, and sorry, there was a pause, so I can go. But if anybody wants to jump in, go ahead. But what I find as challenging, and even as a senior executive now and throughout my career, was to voice opinion. Right? It's to really do that balance that as a public servant, you have the right to have an opinion as a citizen, as an individual, as a person. But the way you voice your opinion you always have to take into consideration how that could be perceived on social media. So you are allowed to share an opinion, you are allowed to comment and to really be vocal about something that you believe in or is it very important to you as an individual. It's all in the way that you communicate it on social media and the way that you're going to voice that opinion and the facts that you're going to use and what you're going to use to provide that opinion. But it could be challenging and knowing, am I voicing it the right way? Could that be perceived as maybe going against the values and ethics? And could that be perceived as being partisan? to political influence. So you have to ask yourself those questions, how your opinions are voiced, how that would be viewed by somebody else. And I always felt it was a challenge for me, and sometimes it's a challenge for a lot of public servants on how they can voice these opinions professionally in line with the values and ethics without being perceived as going against them. So I could see that as being a challenge. There's ways to go around it. I think it comes with experience and by asking yourself a lot of questions and really taking that third party approach and trying to view how would that be viewed as someone outside the public service. So I'm just talking from personal experience and what I can see as a challenge.
Yeah. Dan?
Yeah, if I can weigh in on it. Thanks, Philippe. Two things that I would say that are massive red flags and very, very easy to fall into. One is, like Philippe mentioned, politics, which is, I don't know if anybody notices around election time, it's like, hey, don't forget, you work for the government. So just watch what you post and what you say, or different things like that for social media or even otherwise. And another one is making the mistake of going and either expressing an opinion as though you represent the department, as though you represent the corporate communications or something like that. And normally that's not really a big issue. However, I know there's places like Reddit where conversations can get very, very in depth, very, very specific. And, just a word of caution, that's a definite challenge on certain social media platforms, as far as like making the mistake of going ahead and representing the information that you're giving as anything other than a perspective or an opinion on social media, and then saying, well, this department does this, so this is basically an official view of the department. So it's a sticky place to get into. So I would recommend avoiding that as much as you can.
Thank you, Dan. So I'm just being mindful of time. So for each question, we'll just have one panelist answer it. So the next question is, am I reducing my job possibilities by not being professionally active on social media other than LinkedIn?
Okay, it's a great question for sure. And I know so far during this presentation, I've been a cheerleader for LinkedIn. When I think back to when I was first applying to CSE, it's not like I found it through LinkedIn as you could currently. It was through a co-op portal that I had access through my university. So I know here the point of today's conversation is to talk about social media and how we can leverage it. So it's not the end of the world if you don't have a LinkedIn account. You just have to keep in mind the various other factors that are either competing with you or against you, like in your favor or not, when it comes to job search. So for example, security process. How long does a security process take? On average, 9 months. Do you have those 9 months? Will you be in Ottawa? Are you based outside the NCR? There's all these other factors we can start to look at before we name LinkedIn or social media the problem. So yeah, it's not the main event. It's not the only thing. It's just, are you willing to have some patience and have some faith? And did you even try LinkedIn yet? Have you connected? Have you filled out some parts of your profile? If you're already working with people, even if you're just a student or a term, ask them how they got this job and ask them, how should I best present myself online and what are the steps I can take next to level up? A nice thing I like to tell people is ask your supervisor or your manager to take them with you. So it would be like for me going to my supervisor saying, can you take me with you to your next meeting? That's going to be in 2 hours. We're going to take some notes and then we're going to review it after. And that just gives you more visibility and you're still in your workplace. So I know a lot of people that are introverted, they only feel secure like networking within their department. So that can be another outlet you can choose.
Great advice, Sierra. Do hiring managers look up employees on all the social media platforms? Which platforms are most popular for your organization?
Okay, I can speak to this quickly again. So I mentioned LinkedIn has been our most popular. The second runner up is YouTube. I know we didn't get to talk about it today, but it basically serves as a repository for our recruitment video, advice and guidance from the Cyber Center. We have a lot of cute videos from Get Cyber Safe that are cybersecurity advice and guidance. The second part of the question, sorry, which I don't believe that all hiring managers have the time to do a thorough background check, but maybe Philippe can give us some more info.
No, I don't think it's not part of our DNA within the public service to do a social media scrub that you would call it. It's like for candidates or a potential candidate. But it may happen, and I think it's going to happen more and more if it's already not happening. So I think it's very important to keep that in mind, especially when you review. I know Sierra has talked about privacy settings, for example. If you don't want the employer to see what your Facebook because you want to keep your Facebook personal, make sure you do those privacy and security settings to make sure that they can only see maybe the main profile and they don't see anything else, or unless they ask for a request. So make sure that you are aware that they could see it. Another tip, Google yourself. You may have created a past profile while you were a teenager with a very embarrassing picture and you forgot all about it. So do a scrub, make sure that your social media presence is up to date, that you have the proper security and privacy settings on all your social media, and decide what you want to see the employer to see, regardless if it's public service or not. And that's how you can do it and decide what they can see. So I would say it's not common, not part of the process, but I say it's happening, and it's going to happen more and more because social media is such a big part of our life.
What are my chances of getting noticed and hired by managers when I post on GC Connect's career marketplace?
Do you want me to talk? I would say, uh, I think there is a big chance. I would say, just don't use only that platform. You can provide your interest about something that's being posted there. You can communicate to that platform. My biggest tip is maybe follow up. It's always posted with a contact name or a contact number. Go to get that person contact and write them personally. Don't just keep it to GC Connects or so forth. I would say connect to them personally and say, I've seen your GC Connects. I've provided my interest, but I wanted to reach personally. I wanted to have a chance to provide you a little bit more information about myself. You can go a couple of paragraphs and open the door to have an informal discussion with them. So I would say just don't stick to answering, yes, I'm interested. Go a little bit further than that to really show that you're interested and you're able to give more to that hiring manager or supervisor. And you can use GEDS to find those contacts. Thanks.
So for our last question, what is a common mistake you see people make on social media when looking for jobs?
I can tell you a lot of the time, people that are either external or already work within the government, one of the biggest mistakes, and I had the esteemed privilege of working with a senior career counselor at PSPC by the name of Alia Chamberlain and Yves Morissette. There were two people. One did executives, and then one did employees. And they said a lot of people screen themselves out. A lot of people don't bother doing what Philip said, and ask the questions and be curious and say, okay, yeah, you're advertising for that job. And, did you have anything else in your shop, or, keep my resume on file, keep my CV on file for other positions that might pop up that if you get budget later on, let me know. But to say, oh, I don't have every single little thing that they're looking for, I must not be able to do that job. Being a free agent, we're really encouraged to pursue different paths, looking at the business case and seeing, oh, well, you said that you want somebody for engagement, but really you need somebody who's going to be able to facilitate some meetings, and you have all these other business requirements too that you need met. And I actually have more of a subject matter expertise in those than what you posted for. But like Philippe said, absolutely go reach out to people, be curious, ask them questions. The interview goes both ways, the coffee chat goes both ways. 30-minute meetings are absolutely a tool to put in your belt, and use them as much and as often as you can. So so that you get as much information as you can, but screening yourself out, looking at a job posting online and saying, unless there's a hard and fast educational requirement, or unless there's a specific experience requirement, significant experience in the last, like recent and significant, 2 years in the last 5, things like that, make sure you just be curious. And yes, it can be tedious. I know communication takes energy, like we mentioned before, but you never know what can happen when you go and reach out to those hiring managers. So please, please, please don't count yourself out. It's very much worth just sending the message and pursuing it.
So thank you, Sierra, Philippe, and Dan. I know I learned a lot, and I will definitely look at this recording on the Fin YouTube page or check out the podcast series that we have. If you want to know more about any of these topics, check out the CBC 2024 Wiki resource page. Before we conclude, we have one final polling question. The results from the poll will not be shared. The question is, was this session a good use of time? Yes, no, I don't know. On behalf of the Federal Youth Network, we would like to thank you for joining us today. This concludes the session for day 2. Be sure to join us next Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern for another exciting day of Career Bootcamp. There is also an opportunity to drop into the kiosk and speak with members of the Government of Canada communities from 3:30 to 4:30 p.m. The link to all the sessions, as well as the networking event, can be found on the Zoom events main page. Resources will be available on the wiki page, and the recording of this event will be available on our YouTube channel. Have a wonderful day, everyone.